Being a console streamer and starting out, it can be a little difficult to figure out what hardware you need. And so today I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to set up the FIFINE AmpliGame V3 capture card using my Nintendo Switch and how to get it running in OBS. And then I'm going to let you know where it lands in comparison to things like Elgato's capture card or maybe some off-brand capture card nobody's ever heard of. So quick disclosure, FIFINE did send me the capture card for free for this video, so it's kind of sponsored in a sense, but they aren't really telling me what to say. All they told me to do was do a video that shows how to set this capture card up, and that's it. So when it comes to the pros and cons, they didn't give me any guidelines on that, so I'm going to give you my honest feedback on that. So the Ampligame V3 is a plug-and-play capture card aimed at console streamers who want a clean 1080p 60 frames per second capture, plus a pass-through that can go up to 4K in 30 frames a second, which is in line with things like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. So when it comes to what is in the box, you're going to get the capture card and a USB cable, plus, the manual. But I do want to point out that there are no HDMI cables included. It's a small thing, but I do want to make sure you know that you're going to need to get 2 HDMI cables in order to hook this up correctly. So when it comes to wiring this up, it is the standard 3-cable job where you have the HDMI out, which is going to take from the capture card into the screen. And then you're going to have the HDMI in, which is taking from your console and putting it into the capture card. So that way the capture card can then transmit it through the HDMI. Then you also have the USB-C port that's on the card itself. And this is so that way you have the data going from the capture card into your PC that then your OBS is going to pick up and use. Now, when you're connecting the USB port to your PC, make sure you're using a USB 3.0 or higher port. If you are not familiar what that looks like, it's going to be the blue colored USB port on your PC. That is going to provide enough bandwidth for the video to come through in full HD. If you're using a USB port that is not 3.0 and maybe it's the 2.1 or 2.0, it's not going to function correctly and you're going to encounter problems. So make sure you're using a USB 3.0 or higher port. So I did mention with this that it does have a pass-through through it. One of the biggest reasons you want a pass-through is pretty simple. Even good capture cards have some recording latency, meaning a little bit of lag. FIFINE lists the recording lag to be about 60 to 70 milliseconds, which may not seem like much, but if you were to use the gameplay you're seeing on your OBS as what you are actually playing on, you're going to have enough lag that you may not be able to land that headshot the way you're supposed to. And so the pass-through is meant to be a very clean video signal with zero delay onto your monitor. Now, before we get into putting it into OBS, there's a couple things I want to mention with this. There are 2 ports next to the HDMI in. One is labeled line in, the other one is labeled headset. So let me clarify the difference between the two. Line in is essentially an additional audio source coming in. So let's say you wanted to hook up your phone and be able to play, DMCA free music through your phone and have it recorded in there. This gives you the option to be able to do that. Now, if you've seen the other video I've done for FIFINE where I reviewed their audio mixer, you could put it through this as well. So you have options of where you want to put audio through, or you can use both and have 2 different kinds of audio going through. It's your choice. And then when it comes to the headphone, if you have where you get the headphone splitter where one part goes into your console, the other part goes into your controller, and then you'll have a third part, that's where you would plug it into the capture card so that way it is synced with the gameplay. It's also a great way, in case you don't have a mic like this or can't afford one, you have a way to capture your audio from your mouth from the headset. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you how to set this up when it comes to OBS Studio. Now, I just want to put a note out there real quick. You don't have to use OBS Studio in order to use this. You can use Streamlabs, you can use Meld, whatever broadcasting software you want to use, this should be able to work with it so long as it supports a video capture device. Which, if you're using one that doesn't support a video capture device, what are you using? In whatever broadcasting software you have, where you're going to add a source. And it's going to be the video capture device, similar to capturing a webcam. And then you can label it as the FIFINE V3 capture card, or just capture card, or however you want to put it, just so that way you know what it is. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go into the device list, and depending on how many things you have already hooked up, what you're going to find is the FIFINE video capture. Now here, the device default actually showed up and gave me my Nintendo Switch as I want it. Now, if it shouldn't show up with device default, you would click and come down to custom here, and you would manually set this up. So this would be a 1920 by 1080 resolution. On the frame rate, you would do the highest frame rate, and that is going to be 60 frames per second. Video format you can set as any. Color space you can leave as default. The color range you can leave as default. And the one thing I would advise is coming down here and using custom audio device. Now, if I didn't use custom audio device, you'll see that there's nothing in the audio mixer for this, which I can't then control the audio of this. That's why I always click use custom audio device and set it to the same capture card. The reason I will do this is because then in the audio mixer on OBS, I can actually adjust the volume as I need to make sure that my audio mixing in OBS is going to be what I want it to be. And honestly, the setup in OBS is really that simple. All you got to do is add it to the scenes you need it in, and you're good to go. Okay, now let's talk about some of the fun parts of this is the fact that you have a RGB lighting on top of the capture card itself. Now, this isn't required for anything. This is just a nice little thing that you can help, dress up your desk. So if you're like me and your PC has RGB on it, you can make it match your PC, maybe match other things on your desk, making it look kind of, matching. When it comes overall to the different ways that the lights can be shown, there are a total of 9 different ways that the lights can be done. So like I've had on here, we have the generic rotating rainbow. There is the flash a single color through. There are even some modes where you can have 2 colors colliding into each other and going back. Some that kind of look like Kit from Knight Rider. Yes, I'm that old, okay? I'm an 80s kid. There's a lot of different options you have available to you when it comes to the color and presentation of this capture card. This is really more for you unless you're going to have everything set up to where you are displaying this as part of everything else you've got. There is an important thing to note here, and that is if you are using like a PlayStation 5, there can be something where a black screen is going to come up and you're going to get frustrated on why this is happening. Now, if you don't know what HDCP is, that's high bandwidth digital content protection. It's digital rights management. So what this is meant to do is prevent copyright material from going out on stream. It's meant to help protect you from getting into some sort of legal trouble. Now, the FIFINE capture card actually has an HDCP warning indicator on it. So right next to where you would plug your USB-C cable into, if you see a yellow light, that means there is copyright protection and it is blocking what is going to OBS Studio to capture. So one of the things you're going to want to do is go into your settings on your console. Disabling it on your console will at least make it to where you can get it on your screen. At least until your capture card says, wait a minute, no, this is like hard-coded, we can't do it. Okay, so let me tell you what I liked about this. First, when it comes to the price point of this, it's sitting around the $50 mark, which is actually a great option when it comes to a budget. When I started streaming about 5 years ago, I didn't have FIFINE as an option. I had, well, Mirabox. And this was a $30 capture card, and it worked okay. It wasn't terrible. It had its issues, and it took a while for me to get it to where it worked correctly, consistently. The pass-through, I didn't notice any lag. In fact, it felt very natural, very normal, same as the Elgato. I was really surprised at the capture quality when it came to the colors. I was surprised at how colorful everything came up on the screen. Honestly, looked more colorful than some of the capture cards I've used. When it comes to the setup was quick, easy, especially since I know what I'm doing, and hopefully it's easy for you after watching this video. Okay, so let me talk about the things that I'm not really a fan of. First off, the fact that there isn't even one HDMI cable that comes in the box. I get that's a cost-cutting measure, but at the same time, it makes it a little bit more difficult for me because now I gotta go out and I gotta get 2 HDMI cables. Which, I mean, overall for me isn't too much of an issue because I got plenty of cables for pretty much anything. But that's where my second little thing kind of comes in, is that when it came to picking out an HDMI cable to use for this, I found that the ones that were the super cheap end or maybe older cables that I tried to use with this sometimes would wind up cutting out the video signal on my monitor, and my monitor would flip back to the PC. And when I'm talking cheap, I'm talking about like this is the weirdest off-brand name I've ever heard of, but hey, it's like $5, so let's get it. Another thing that kind of bugs me, and I think it really comes down to how Elgato's done their more recent capture cards, is that Elgato has both the HDMI in and out and the USB plug all on one side. This is a more old style setup where you have on one end the input and on the other end the output. And I know it's supposed to be like sideways, but sometimes you can't get that set up just right. This is where I feel like if they would have done a one side in, IO port for this, I think would have been better, because then I could set it in a way where that color could really play a factor in the overall setup and look nice. Again, that's a preference thing. It's not really affecting the overall quality that you're getting with this or really anything else. Okay, so where does it stack up in comparison to like everybody else? Well, first off, some off-brand, unknown, you're always running a risk with it. Elgato, you are absolutely paying for a name, and the name does reflect quality. I mean, you're talking Corsair-owned quality. So when it comes to FIFINE, they are really making a name for themselves when it comes to undercutting what Elgato has and making it more affordable options. Both the Elgato and FIFINE capture cards work great in their own right. The premium you're getting with Elgato is just software, and that's software that is designed and integrated for that specific product, which is great. But if you're somebody who doesn't need the software because you wanted to use maybe OBS to capture everything, you don't need multiple different programs to control everything, you're keeping it simple. And so overall, I'm honestly going to say, if you're starting out, you are tight on a budget, you don't know what to get, I can suggest this. Now, if you found this video helpful, I would appreciate if you hit the subscribe button. I do try to do product reviews when I can, but I mainly stick with StreamerBot and OBS tutorials, mainly to get you guys up and moving the way you want to be for your streams. Now, if you have a question about this product or really anything that I do, or you need suggestions or have questions, just let me know in the comments below, join my Discord, whatever you need to do to reach out. I am more than willing to talk to you about it. So I want to thank FIFINE for providing me this so that way I could review it, give my honest opinions over it, and give you guys a setup video to get you going, just like I like to do with everything I do, get you guys streaming the way you want to stream. So until my next video, I hope you all get to streaming, having a good time, and I will catch you on my next video.